All right, we are back for round 2. We're going to try this again. So I'm Alyssa, and this is my guest, and she's going to introduce herself to all of you.
Hello, my name is Danielle Salinas. I work for Telios Engineering here in Dallas, Texas. I grew up in Kansas City and went to Kansas State University where I studied architectural engineering and I minored in Spanish. I interned with Telios for 2 summers and then have been working full time for 5 years. 2 days ago was my 5-year anniversary. So yeah, I'm a project manager, so I've been able to work on mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design for commercial buildings.
Okay, so first question, what made you want to be an engineer?
Good question. My probably every engineer's first answer is I loved math.
Yeah.
When I was in 8th grade and I learned how to solve for X in like pre-algebra or whatever, I loved doing that, and I made up my own equations and would get like really weird answers for X, really odd fractions or something. And that carried over all the way to high school, and I decided that I wanted to look at engineering. When I decided on K-State, I grew up in Missouri, but they had offered in-state tuition for architectural engineering because the Missouri State School didn't have that. So my dad was like, you should do that one until you know what you want to do, since the first 2 years of engineering are mostly the same. You're doing the calculus and the science classes. So I did that and ended up loving the orientation class for it. And I think I just got lucky that it ended up being a good fit. And my brother also started out in architectural engineering, so he was able to give me a lot of insight as to like what his classes looked like and what his professors kind of told him the industry would look like. So I had a lot of help or extra understanding of what that was. But that's how I ultimately decided architectural engineering.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So on the topic of education, what was the hardest class you ever took in college?
There were a few difficult ones, but the one that stands out the most to me is dynamics, because it was one of those classes, I don't know if this is at every school, but where the average A passing grade is a 40%.
Yeah.
And I didn't have an A. I had probably more like a B or a C, and that's like a 30 or 20%, and I'm like, I didn't learn anything on this. But it was really difficult. I think a lot of the beginning classes that are not a part of your specific department tend to be a lot more difficult. But once I got into my department classes, my last few years, they were so much easier. The content was probably a little bit more difficult to understand because they were higher level, but we had smaller class sizes. We knew our professors, and the professors cared more about us passing, whereas when you're in the huge lecture halls, you're more just like a number. So I definitely did better in smaller class sizes, and dynamics was huge and very difficult, and the theories were difficult to understand.
Yeah.
So least favorite.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
So Danielle, you conducted my interview for this internship.
I did.
So what are your tips for nailing an interview?
Do exactly what you did. No, you did a great job, and one thing that we look for is kind of showing your personality, making yourself stand out. If you're interviewing for an engineering position, you're interviewing a ton of really smart people. If you can graduate with an engineering degree, then you're smart. You're most likely qualified for that position on a technical level. Yeah. And so the things that can make you stand out are different from the technical stuff, like making sure that you show that you can work with other team members and people outside the organization. Like, we have to coordinate a lot with architects and contractors, so being able to communicate your thoughts clearly with people who don't understand engineering is really important. And on that, just getting along with them, because our team is fairly small. That could be super different company to company, but making sure that the personalities on teams vibe well with each other is really important for just team morale overall. So finding a way to show your personality and ask them questions and maybe bring up conversations that can just show like a different side of you of how your personality can shine and stand out compared to others. I think that's the best one. And always ask questions. Prepare for your interview by studying who you're interviewing with. So know something about the company and have questions for the interviewer. I think when I interviewed for my internships, I had the same list of questions and they could apply to all the companies, so it's easier on you. Just make up some generic questions that show you've given like thought and interest into like what you want your summer or your full-time position to be. And you could just recycle those, but it shows that you did some research and prepared and were ready for this, and you didn't just print your resume off and show up. So that's my advice.
Awesome. So when you were looking for your internship, what made Telios stand out to you?
When I was looking for my internship, there were, at K-State, companies come to the university and you could sign up for interviews. So I had signed up for a handful of different interviews with different companies for a summer internship position. And what the companies do is they come in the night before, do a presentation, go out to dinner, and then the next day they have a full day of interviews. So when Telios came, did the presentation, went to dinner at Houlihan's, and at the end of dinner, the waitress, like over my shoulder, just handed me the little check in the little black book, and I opened it, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And I had already started grabbing for my wallet because I just thought like everyone was getting their own individual checks, which would have been odd still, but it was instinct. And then all of a sudden the owner of the company, Shannon, was across the table just cracking up. And I was like, oh, do I not pay this? And then he ended up taking it, but he had told the waitress to hand that to me just as a prank. And I love pranks, and I thought that was pretty funny.
That's a good one.
So that started off with Telios and I on a really good foot there. The next day, I interviewed with my now boss and mentor, Marcus, and that went really well. I learned a lot about the company and really enjoyed the 3 or 4 people from the company that came down to interview. And then on a technical side, what I loved was that Telios was able to offer me to be able to work on mechanical, electrical, and plumbing disciplines and not just pick like some companies were like, you have to pick one, like would you want to be just electrical or just mechanical? And I was a little bit younger, and so I really didn't know what I wanted and I didn't want to choose. So Telios being able to offer a variety for me to like my first time in industry, get to practice all of them was really great. And that's still what I'm doing now. I am not focused on one discipline, and that's what I want to keep doing. I don't think I ever want to just be a master of one, rather be a jack of all trades and be able to do a little bit of everything and get a really good kind of general knowledge of everything. And as I learn more, dive deeper so I can maybe by the time I retire, be a master of all. We'll see.
Nice.
But yeah, those two, the personalities of the company and being able to be flexible with what I'm wanting in my career has always been something they've been able to offer.
So when you're doing an interview, you should show your personality, but you also need to be looking for their personality.
Yes, absolutely. You are interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. We're lucky enough to be in engineering and have pretty good job opportunity selection, so you can be picky.
So now that you are full-time in your career, what has been your favorite part of being an engineer?
My favorite part of being an engineer is being proud of what I do. I sometimes do get embarrassed when people ask what I do and I say engineering and they're like, you are so smart, wow. And to me, I think like anyone could do what I do, but that's probably not realistic. And so it does feel kind of good to have someone compliment you like that. So I do feel really proud to say that I'm an engineer. I feel really accomplished with what I do, and even my day-to-day of like getting my tasks done and sending out projects. It's just something that I can be really proud and feel really accomplished and fulfilled in what I'm doing, which is, I think, important for your long-term like longevity of enjoying what you're doing in life, not having burnout. And then we do a lot of work in Dallas, so I love being able to drive by a building and be like, I designed that. Or I built that. Someone else built it, but I told them how to. Yeah, so that's pretty fun. We do a lot of work downtown, so just when we're like walking around for restaurants or something, it's cool to see that.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So what is one thing you wish you knew before you entered the industry?
When we were in school, in college, our professors all worked in industry before they came back to teach full-time, and they told us different pieces of advice, and one thing that they said was, the industry is really small, everyone knows everyone, remember that. And I always understood that to be like, be good to everyone and don't burn bridges, because if you burn a bridge, if you like, everyone makes mistakes, but if you make a mistake and you try to lie and cover it up and you get this bad reputation or something, then potentially the whole industry could hear about it.
Yeah.
And you would have that reputation. But I think they did mean it that way, but one thing that I didn't realize was the flip side of that is start right from the beginning. If you want to be a manager and be working with outside relationships or even people within your company, like cultivate those relationships, because even if you're working on one project with a civil engineer or something, you might think, oh, it's only this one project, but it so easily could be 5 projects later and then another 10 projects after that. You're working with the same people in the industry, the same architects, the same contractors, the same civil engineers, structural engineers, over and over again.
Yeah.
So if you can remember their names from the beginning and like put importance on remembering different facts about people and like, okay, this is the architecture firm and they have these people, because it is overload at the beginning. There's so many people and names to remember. So I'm just consciously remembering things like that. I have to consciously do it. Names don't stick in my brain easily. So that is one thing that I wish I would have known. It took me a couple years to like get the different firm names and people who worked for different firms straight. And then from there, get to know those people a little bit closer so that it's easier and more fun and better to work with them. I personally work better with people that I have a good relationship with. I don't work as well with strangers. I'm maybe a little bit more shy, but once you know someone's personality, you know how they function, and you can kind of match that, mirror that, work together really well, then it's going to be an even better project. You're going to enjoy it. The outcome is going to be better. So if you can get to that with people, it's going to make you a better engineer. So that, I think, was really important to me that I didn't quite notice, but I think people were trying to tell me. I just didn't interpret it correctly.
Yeah. For you, what would you say it's like to work at Telios as a woman?
Working at Telios as a woman, I think, is great. It's interesting because there's not a lot of females. There's just not a lot of females in the industry.
Right, yeah.
There's unfortunately more females in university and like studying for STEM classes. It's a lot more, it's not 50-50, but it's way closer. And then when you graduate, within I think like 5 years, one of my professors did research on this, the numbers plummet for various different reasons. So it's a little different when you graduate, but Telios, I think, doesn't make it feel that way. I've always been treated really fairly, and I think the biggest thing is my leadership style is different from a lot of the people that I work with, and communication styles are different, but we found a way to, the people on my team, like, it just fits really well with how we all work and communicate together. So I love that. I have experienced, like, not any, like, blatant sexism outside of the company, but just, like, weird things of, like, a guy not shaking my hand one time, where it's like I don't ever experience that within Telios. When I started as my internship, there were me and one other female intern, and we were the only female engineers in the company. And then when I started full-time, they had just hired a full-time female engineer, so then I started and there were 2 of us again. So there's always been small numbers, and since we were we weren't the first female engineers at Telios, but at that time we were like the only ones, and so we were able to, like, give input on different things, like the other woman was pregnant, so we created a wellness room for her to use when she came back from her maternity leave. And that was cool. Some people might see that as a burden of, like, oh, you now have to, like, help give input on this. I personally love that responsibility, because then I get to do it the way that I would like it. Granted, I was working with this other woman, but it was still really nice. So it has worked out really well for me in, like, what I value, and I really enjoyed it. I've always been treated fairly. I feel like I get along with everyone. No one, like, doesn't give me opportunities because I'm a female. If anything, I maybe get more opportunities because they're like, oh, we need, like, a female to represent in recruiting, and I really love recruiting, so it was really easy for me to get in on the company recruiting. So things like that you can kind of, like, use to your advantage has been nice. And I've never have to carry a ladder. I don't ever say I don't want to carry a ladder. People just offer to carry the ladders, and I don't say no. So things like that. It's not bad. There can be some great perks to it.
For sure. Okay, so when we first recorded this, I threw in a special bonus question at the very end.
And I got very nervous, and I think my face got really red before you asked that.
So this time it's not really a surprise, but I absolutely need this to go on record. So, final question, Danielle. At this office, which team has the best intern this summer?
And I promise I did say, Alyssa, our team definitely has the best intern.
You heard it here. It's on film if I don't accidentally delete it again. Okay,
no,
well,
you have been great.
Thank you for doing this, not once, but twice.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. And I remember I said this at the end last time, and I want to make sure that everyone hears it. If you guys have other women in your office, reach out to them and, like, get a relationship with them. I have a few other female friends, and I think we all think the same way, that we want more women in the industry. We want more women at our company, and even specifically, like, I want more women on my team. It just makes you feel a little bit more included. Like, it's fun to have women and not just be around men all day, like, talking about sports or something. So these other women in your office, like, they want you so badly, and like, get connected with them, be friends with them, ask them questions, force them to be your mentor, and they'll do it. They should happily do it. I think that wasn't a word. They will happily help out and support you. I think that we really need to empower women, and women supporting women is great. That's what a lot of the industry is leaning towards. So utilize that, get to know them, and have a great summer.
Yay!